But today at Seeking Our Inner Being, we're very pleased to welcome Jess. Thank you for joining us today, Jess.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. So our first question for you, are you in contact with, or do you have an awareness of your deep inner being?
I really like the question. I think so.
Yeah.
What I'd really like to do in order for me to be sure that I am on the same wavelength as you is, could you perhaps expand on what you mean by your inner being?
I think the reason that we've kind of left it open is because everybody has a knowingness in them, in that deeper place. But we're all on a various path, steps along that path.
Absolutely.
And so we're not sort of stepping in to define for people whereabouts they are or what their understanding is of that. So I'm very happy for you to bring whatever your own understanding is, whatever your own reflection brings you to on that.
So that was exactly what I was kind of hoping you would say. So my practice is Vipassana meditation.
Yep.
And before Vipassana meditation, before my first course, I could comfortably say I didn't have that connection to any being, an inner being, anything beyond myself, really.
Okay.
But during my first Vipassana, after the first 3 or 4 days, where you have your first experience of true silence, finally is quiet and you really start to feel for the first time. That's when I had this first sense of knowing. And I remember the first time I really had a big moment. And it was wonderful because I went to Vipassana really looking for answers. I really want to understand life and I want to know what my purpose is. Probably slightly too big questions for a 10-day course. But when I found an answer, it was marvelous because it didn't feel like a firework. I didn't feel like my brain exploded. It just felt this deep inner rightness. It was a much better feeling than I ever expected. And I'd come out of an hour sitting. The sitting is called Adityan, where as much as possible you're trying not to move, which you can really get to a place of discomfort. If you're in extraordinary pain, of course, move. But I left this Adityan with this real sense of floaty rightness. And I came out of the hall, it was quite dark, and came into the light outside. And I looked up at the sun, and there was this shaft of light coming through a cloud. And close to me, I could see all these dust motes just floating around in that beam. And I just had this instant, I am in that dust. This connection to the entirety of the world outside of me. During the actual sitting, it's a real peaceful awareness. And then when you leave the hall, it's like knowing in action. Knowing in sitting and then knowing in action. And since then, it's been much easier for me to find empathy with people, to see situations more objectively than I do picking one side or the other, because you have an awareness of the connection of everything. And I'd like to expand, if I may.
Please.
On the second Vipassana sitting I did, I had a much more obvious imagery came to me that made me aware of this. It doesn't have too many emotions. It's not guiding me with a leash in any direction. It's a simple, sort of gentle, almost parental type feeling within. And so I'm sitting there again in another Adityan sitting. I'm in a fair amount of discomfort, a lot in my hips.
The body.
And the body was saying, I do not want to be here. But the mind was saying, I want to be here very much. And I began to meditate in Vipassana as the somatic awareness. And I began to meditate on the internal parts of my body. And I'd started by visualizing and feeling the inside of my mouth and then the inside of my throat. And as I started to go into the chest area and the stomach, this huge silence came in my ears. My eyes are closed, so there's silence there. But the whole of the rest of the world went from 100% to 5%. Even the pain in my hips, it felt like I was inside. It was like you know how they say there's a ripple in the waves, but in the deep ocean, everything is calm. I had that physical feeling of that. And I came to this place in my stomach. You know, there's that place in Poland, the salt caves. I don't know the name of it, but there's a deep inner cavern with like diamonds on the sky above, but you're in a very dark, very quiet, very large place. And I felt myself, I felt a being, a small, very small being right in the bottom of that dark cathedral, looking up into this empty, magnificent space. And I just felt presence inside was there, kind of just watching from those deep, calm depths, just watching everything.
Was
around.
that a part of you, Jess? Did you feel like that was you as...
I certainly interpreted it that way at the time.
Yeah.
I'd seen it at that point because of my professional work as my inner child. And I understand that some people's beliefs about that inner being is related to that inner child, that innocent young thing before life got in and twisted its beliefs around. I certainly connected that inner being as that child part of me, that it's neither good nor bad, it's wrong nor right, it just is. And very occasionally when I'm very into the meditation, I can come back to that place and I have an immense comfort knowing that inner being is always there, right in the calm depths, just watching, not reacting, just being in that beauty.
Right, so when you take all the external and go really deep in what this is what you experience, beautiful.
Exactly.
And so that's obviously the most significant moment that's and you said, how long ago was the first Vipassana that you did?
First one would have been 2021, end of 21. The second one was 22.
Okay. And so now, are there any particular ways in which, you mentioned a few, you know, your connection to people, the empathy you feel, the kind of sense of oneness. In practical day-to-day life, is there ways in which this experience manifests in your life, or had some practical applications or ways that you kind of say,
from my professional standpoint within a clinic setting, it's a deep sense of allowing. It's not, in the past when someone would come in with a lot of pain, a lot of frenetic activity, I would come in at that level too. We would rise together in this extreme discomfort. But having this deep, calm, objective presence means that when someone is in that place, I can support them without losing myself in it as well.
Lovely.
I am allowing them their feelings. And I'm not trying to jump in and fix it straight away. I'm there for advice, obviously.
But it's a difficult challenge actually in what we...
I dislike it very much when someone will say, oh, it's okay, don't cry. They should cry. The crying will make it better. I can silently offer a box of tissues and allow them to do what they need to do, and it not to affect me too much. I can empathize without trying to smother. And I think that's a really helpful thing, professionally speaking.
Like what you said about it's allowing things to be as they are.
Yes. Exactly. And practically it stops my mind becoming, I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. There's still lots of situations where I get very stressed and worried about things, like doing interviews.
Understandable.
But to say when I'm perhaps watching something in the past, like a news story, which I try not to get too hung up on now, is that I'm determined now not to take an immediate, this person is right and this person is wrong. Is looking at something and trying to remain okay, this is interesting. I will allow these feelings to come, but without going through my whole day going, oh gosh, what about those poor people? Oh, how can I help them? There's a story told one night in Vipassana, which is extraordinary because it's a story my dad used to teach me when I was younger, and he's never done the course. I think he would have heard it through some other fable type story. It's about this king who wants something to make him happy when he's sad and sad when he's happy. Right. And he invites every artist and artisan and creator in the world to create this thing for him. And obviously everyone fails, because how can you have something that makes you happy when you're sad and sad when you're happy? It's an impossible task. And then this one man or person comes with a ring, and he gives the ring to the king, and on the inside of the ring it says, "This too shall pass." And I don't know what age I was when my dad told me that, but then re-listening to the story in a slightly different way when I was older, I really, you know, the difference between learned knowledge and experiential knowledge. Very important. I experience what that feels like, to know that what's happening right now is going to pass. And that makes all the difference with any interaction in my life, providing I can be mindful of it. You can learn it, but then forget it very quickly.
And that's things carrying it through into the next minute, the next hour, the next week. What about practices, Jess? You've mentioned Vipassana, and obviously this kind of mindfulness seated meditation is important. So far, is there anything else that you do day to day to try to keep this awareness, this experience alive in you?
There is definitely, like you're saying, this awareness of being mindful that there inside me is the watcher, and there is the thoughts and feelings and very loud agitated being that exists there as well. So that awareness is the first thing. Is I try and remain aware. Only recently I've been aiming to use more of the mantra type work, more in the English language rather than when I'm not comprehending. Is I'm using the I am enough. I'm trying to use that a lot, like the self-soothing atmosphere of it.
Like in a japa style, like repetition, or just when you need it, you pull it forward?
More when I need it. I haven't actually tried doing it in a repetitive way before, but I'll ask you about that later.
But continue, please.
So when I'm having a big awareness of an emotion or a thought coming up, one that's really not helpful or quite unkind to myself, I'm really trying to stop, breathe, see that emotion for what it is, like Gabor Mate would call compassionate inquiry. I'm really trying to come at this like a compassionate adult and go, we are enough. It's okay. I'm sort of imagining I'm in a holding. It's we are enough. I'm not shoving down the feeling. It's we're okay. We can do it. And that's probably the main. Oh no, there is another thing. Certainly when I'm feeling the entanglement of feelings and I can't quite express what those are. If I know I have an anxiety but can't quite fiddle out what it is, it's journaling. Absolutely.
Lovely.
And again, that's journaling to this inner being. I call it, this is the little one. I'm calling her my little one. So I'm not just open flowing, which also is fun. It's really a specific, what do you need to tell me, little one?
So you're trying to use that to listen to what comes through. I like it. Very nice.
Depending on what stage things like my clients are on, will you perhaps use something similar?
Good tool. To close, and this is possibly one of the more difficult ones actually, is to share with others what particular challenges or barriers or traps have you come across so far that you think kind of put out to others to have a bit of a caution about? Does anything come to you?
Barriers. I think would you mind just expanding a little more?
So one example might be that sometimes I would share from my own thing. Sometimes you think a certain experience means something and you kind of take it for granted in a way and let it sort of slip out of it. So, and we mentioned this before, is to keep
Yeah.
to keep it with you actually and transfer it, absorb it, and transfer it into day to day. So for me, that's one trap or challenge I would mention.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I'm glad I was very much on the same mind. I was wondering if I misinterpreted. Is you're never done.
Ah, I like it.
It's the mind, as we know from, sorry to say professionally a lot, because my professional understanding guides me and drives me forwards in a way that I'm very lucky that it might be quite easy if the work you do has nothing to do with mental awareness. I'm lucky mine does.
Yeah.
Is that the learning is only learning when you're experiencing it.
Yeah.
Is that the mental pathways of the brain need to be kept trimmed like a garden. You have pathways that if we leave the pathway, it will overgrow and then you can't find it again, even if you really want to. And then you go back to your habitual patterns.
Yeah, sure.
So that you're never done means that there's not going to be a point where I suddenly know enough that suddenly I am a perfect present being and I am good and ready forever.
Good.
So it might change as I get older.
Yeah.
I might learn things that hold on more. I think the key thing about when you find your method, whatever that method is, literally anything from the research that we've been doing, is when you found that thing that sticks with you, keep doing it. Sure, if you need to, you do it daily. If you need to, it's weekly. But it's keep the awareness of something in the sea has become unsettled, and then do something with it.
Sure.
Don't become despondent because something has come again. When you learn something that helps, like a meditation technique, don't expect that to be the final tick, cure, put it done forever. It's when the next thing comes, take that method and bring it out again. Your toolbox is there for you, and if you need someone else to help, absolutely fine too. There's nothing. Don't be embarrassed about that, especially as an allied health professional. We have this idea that we should know everything because we've had the lesson, so surely we don't need help.
No.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
And it's okay to ask.
It's okay to ask, and keep doing it.
Keep trying.
Don't worry if someone else does 2 hours a day, if someone else does 30 minutes a day, if you only manage 10 minutes a week, it doesn't matter. You're on your own path, and you are enough. You're definitely enough.
I love it. Thank you so much. Did you have anything else? Do you feel complete? Anything last that you'd like to share?
One of the incredibly clear things that I'm seeing for people that have really grown and changed is that they feel really happy without pushy talking to others about it. And I think it can be an incredibly selfish thing, perhaps, to have extraordinary growth in your life and not share that benefit with others. So if you've discovered something that helps you, without being pushy about it, is teach what you know to others.
Sure.
Share that love around. Explain to people why something helped you, because you never know who you'll meet at the time when they need it that might help that thing click for somebody else.
100%.
Like you're on the path, but you have two open hands. Like your hands are there to hold other people's hands as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jess.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.